I'm Michelle. The room fell into an icy silence as my father, Henry Thompson, stood up, his face a mask of overconfidence. He held his glass of fine wine like a scepter, ready to deliver another of his lectures. Don't chase pipe dreams. Don't waste years on degrees when you could be building something real, he declared, his eyes sweeping across the room, making sure everyone was listening. Then he turned to me, his voice dripping with condescension. My daughter, Michelle here. She chose theory over practice. Look where that's gotten her. I looked at him, my heart pounding, but my voice steady. Where did it get me, Dad? I asked. He let out a pitying laugh, the kind that cut deep. 7 years, and you still can't afford a decent dress. You'll never make a dime chasing those algorithms. I told you that years ago, and I'm telling you now. Just then, my old boss, Daniel Reed, a managing director at one of the biggest banks in New York, pushed back his chair and stood up. The room turned to him, as if he were a judge about to deliver a verdict. Daniel had always been a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. May I say something? He asked, his voice calm and measured. My father, unaware of what was coming, smiled and gestured grandly. Of course, Daniel. The floor is yours. Daniel straightened his cuffs and looked at my father. I've known your daughter for several years. Professionally, very well, actually. And I need to correct something you just said. The silence in the room deepened. Everyone held their breath, waiting for Daniel to speak. Ms. Thompson, your daughter is the founder and CEO of Horizon Capital, a firm that manages $14 billion in assets under management. Last quarter alone, her algorithms outperformed every major index by 11%. And as of last week's independent valuation, Michelle crossed billionaire status in personal net worth. The room exploded with gasps. My father's face paled, and his hand holding the wine glass trembled. His eyes widened in shock as he stared at me, as if he were seeing me for the first time. Let me take you back to how I got here. My parents divorced when I was 15. My mother, Laura Miller, was a passionate art teacher at a local community college. She had a gentle soul and a love for creativity. My father, on the other hand, was a high-flying investment banker. He was used to getting his way and making quick decisions without consulting anyone. After the divorce, my father moved to a large mansion in the suburbs. He paid the minimum amount of child support required by law and bought himself a luxury car. He remarried a woman named Stella, who brought her 9-year-old son, Jake, into the family. Stella was a social climber. She loved to decorate the house and throw parties. Every time I visited my father's house, things had changed. My old bedroom was turned into a guest room, and my childhood photos were replaced with pictures of Jake's sports achievements. My mother always told me, "Your father loves you in his own way, Michelle. He just doesn't know how to show it." I believed her for a long time, always hoping that one day things would change. When I was 20, I got a full scholarship to MIT for computer science. I was over the moon. My mother and I celebrated by going out for ice cream. But my father's reaction was completely different. Skip it, he said. Come work at my firm. You don't need a degree. You need real world experience. I told him that I wanted to study computer science, that I was good at it, and that the scholarship was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes cold. Computer science? You want to sit in a classroom coding while I'm building an empire? I said, yes, Dad. I do. He cut off all financial support beyond the court, ordered child support. No tuition help, no new clothes, nothing. Stella made things worse. She would call my mother's house and say things like, Henry is heartbroken. Michelle is so stubborn. She thinks she's smarter than him. She also told Jake that I was selfish. Jake, being young and impressionable, started to believe her. He would come to my father's firm on weekends, wearing a little suit, trying to act like a mini banker. I worked 2 jobs throughout college. I studied late into the night, teaching myself advanced algorithms and trading models. I was determined to prove myself. My second year in college, I earned my first real bonus from an internship. I used the money to buy a simple, elegant watch. Not to show off, but to remind myself that I had earned it with my own hard work. After college, I got a job at a small financial firm as a junior analyst. The pay was low, and the hours were long, but I was learning. I spent countless hours building trading algorithms, always striving to make them better. My boss at the time, Daniel, noticed my talent. He started giving me more challenging projects, and I quickly became one of the top analysts in the firm. A few years later, I decided to take a leap of faith. I left the firm and used my savings, along with a small business loan, to start Horizon Capital. It was just me and 2 other employees in a tiny office. But we worked hard, and our algorithms started to gain attention in the financial world. Word spread, and soon, we were managing millions of dollars. As the years passed, our assets under management grew to billions. I became well known in the finance industry, but very few people knew what I looked like. I preferred to let my work speak for itself. Then, one day, I received an invitation to a year-end investor dinner. The invitation was from my father's firm, Thompson Investments. I was hesitant at first. I hadn't spoken to my father in 7 years. But I thought, I'm a successful businesswoman. I'm not going to let his opinion stop me from going. I called my mother and told her about the dinner. She said, "You don't have to go, sweetheart." I replied, "I know, Mom. That's exactly why I'm going." On the night of the dinner, I chose a simple black dress. I put on the watch I had bought with my first bonus and the silver bracelet my mother had given me when I graduated from college. I took an Uber to the venue. When I walked into the dining room, I saw my father immediately. He was standing at the far end of the room, surrounded by a group of men. Stella was beside him, looking glamorous in a red dress. Jake, now 26, was at the bar, laughing too loudly. None of them noticed me at first. I took a glass of water and watched as my father raised his glass and made a toast. "To another year of building something that lasts," he said. Daniel found me and introduced me to some important people in the industry. He was discreet, not mentioning the size of Horizon Capital's assets in front of others. Jake walked past me and stopped, staring at me for a few seconds. He seemed to recognize me but couldn't quite place my face. Then he kept walking. Stella spotted me a few minutes later. She came over, her smile fake. "Michelle, my goodness, I almost didn't recognize you. You've been away for so long." I replied politely, "Hello, Stella. You look well." She asked, "What brings you here tonight? Are you someone's plus one?" I said, "I was invited." Her smile faltered for a moment, but then she recovered. "How nice," she said, and then walked away to tell my father. My father came over to me. "What a surprise," he said, his smile cold. "Hello, Dad. I didn't realize you knew anyone here," I said. He appraised me, looking at my dress and shoes. "We should talk." "Not here. Come to my office next week," he said. I said, "I'm here now. If you'd like to talk, we can talk tonight." Just then, Jake appeared. "Wait, Michelle? You actually came?" he said. Jake turned to my father. "Dad, did you invite her?" My father replied, "No." The dinner began. My father took command of the table, telling the story of how he started his firm. He didn't mention me once, as if I didn't exist. Jake, after a few drinks, turned to me and said, "So, Michelle, what are you up to these days? Still playing with computers?" I set down my fork. "I work in finance," I said. He scoffed. "Finance? Like what? A bookkeeper?" A few people laughed nervously. Daniel didn't laugh. He was watching closely. Stella then chimed in. "Michelle has always been so independent. Maybe a little too independent." As dessert was served, Stella turned to me and said, "This table is for people who built something. What exactly have you built?" I took a sip of my coffee and said, "Something that keeps me busy." My father chuckled. "That's one way to put it." Just then, Daniel stood up and changed everything. After Daniel revealed the truth, the room was in chaos. My father was speechless. Stella started crying, saying that it wasn't fair. Jake was angry, shouting that I was just lucky. I stood up and looked at my father. "Dad, I didn't come here to embarrass you. I came because Daniel invited me to a business dinner. I didn't know it was yours until I saw the program. You asked me years ago what I was building. Tonight, you have your answer. I built Horizon Capital because I'm good at what I do. Your opinion of me never factored into my plans. My father's voice broke. Grace, please. Let me. I interrupted him. You had 7 years, Dad. You didn't call. You didn't write. You chose silence, and so did I. I picked up my clutch and walked towards the elevator. As I left, I heard the guests start to make excuses and leave. A few days later, I found out that my father's firm was put under a 90-day review for their credit line. My father called me several times, but I didn't answer. He sent me an email saying that he had been tough on me because he wanted me to be strong. But there was no apology. I wrote him an email back. I told him that I was happy and that I didn't need an apology. I also said that if he ever wanted to have a real conversation as a father, he knew where to find me. 3 months after the dinner, Horizon Capital manages $16 billion. We've hired more people, and the firm is growing. My mother and I have dinner every week, and we talk about her art classes and my work. I've also started a mentoring program for young women in finance. I tell them that they are enough, and they shouldn't let anyone's opinion limit them. I've learned that the people who say you'll never make it are often afraid of your potential. And when you succeed, you owe it to yourself to keep moving forward.